This is the 92nd day of the Ukrainian resistance and operation of the Mediacentru Ukraine. We continue our next briefing. We shall talk to Oleksandr Starukh, the head of Zaporizhzhia military administration. Greetings. Greetings. The first question is one of a philosophical kind. Zaporizhzhia region is divided in two by the front line, by the line of contact, and you have to deal with the issues of war and also sustain the peaceful economy. How do you manage? The region has been at war for 92 days without a day exception, and we have three stories. We have the story of the occupied territories maintaining life there, giving support to the people. The other situation is the area of operations, the area of hostilities. It is most complicated as it entails all the challenges for settlements like Polohe, who have been exposed to heavy artillery shelling, starting much sustaining large-scale destruction. And the third story is the occupied territories, where we have to help the people delivering the essential services there. And also, Zaporizhzhia city has become a refuge for the internally displaced people. Many people from Mariupol, residents of Zaporizhzhia region, have traveled or stayed on in Zaporizhzhia, and we needed to provide humanitarian relief to them. So, owing to the dedication of all the people, the unity, the government interventions, the volunteers, and our military, first and foremost, holding the defenses in the region, we keep living and performing the mission to defend our homeland and sustain the life of people on the government-controlled and non-controlled territories. Tell us what is happening on the occupied territories in Enerhodar, Melitopol. uh, there is talk that the Russians intend to hand out Russian passports there. They would try to fabricate some local administration. What are Russians seeking to attain? It's not something we sense, but something we know, as some local government officials are in touch with all the services on the ground in the occupied territories, inclusive sustaining the healthcare, the education, the utilities sectors. The situation is becoming aggravated increasingly. There are systemic challenges to do with the invaders trying to gain control uh, through government, trying to gain control of different areas of life. The most recent development was the decision made by Russians to issue Russian passports and have made according statements. And now we make a gallows joke that instead of sending the passports, they sent us the cruise missiles. The situation is dire. In Ederhodar and Melitopol, people are brutalized in order to accept the Russian rule. They're given a choice between collaboration and missile attacks. All Ukrainians in the temporarily occupied territories know the stories, they know the case studies of Donetsk, Luhansk regions, and Crimea that had been seized by the Russian Federation in 2014. And now the people are mobilizing to resist. People have been killed in the earlier controlled territories and are now perishing here. The Russians are trying to hand out their Russian passports in order to mobilize them to their Russian army as the next step. Zaporizhzhia used to be one of the main hubs as a passage center for the IDPs fleeing Donbass, Kherson, Melitopol. What is the situation like currently in terms of humanitarian status? I think the best word to describe Zaporizhzhia is a shelter, a refuge. People couldn't stay here for long, as Zaporizhzhia is quite close to the front line, and that has been the case since March. So people registered here, uh, took some time to recover and made their onwards travel to the western areas of Ukraine or further abroad. Zaporizhzhia remains this passing point. It's mostly happening through Vasilivka vector. People keep traveling to Zaporizhzhia to seek safety. We have 80,000 IDPs. Many of them come from Mariupol. The numbers change on a daily basis. So yesterday we had 904 people arriving in from Zaporizhzhia, from the temporarily occupied territories, including 120 children. 318 have traveled in from the left bank of Zaporizhzhia, and that has been seen for months. And also Vasilivka district and Melitopol and Mariupol, the people coming from those areas. Some people had traveled on to Berdyansk and stayed in the occupied territories. So there are people from there and Mariupol and other places. So yesterday we received at least 900 people. This flow continues as people leave the areas, and that despite the major obstacles when vehicles were blocked on a number of days, being denied passage through Vasilivka, people were used as a live shield in order to redeploy the Russian troops. But this influx of people isn't drying up, but the volunteers and the local government and all the residents of our city and region have helped the people and will continue offering help. Zaporizhzhia is one of the hearts of our country. So Zaporizhzhia is definitely one of the hearts of the Ukrainian economy. Is the economy operating in Zaporizhzhia these days? Could you hear my question? So I'll repeat my question. So Zaporizhzhia is definitely one of the hearts of the Ukrainian economy. A lot of major industries are located in Zaporizhzhia that have a major impact on the national economy. So tell us about the current status of the Zaporizhzhia economy. We are doing all we can to sustain the operation of our industries, even Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, even though it's under occupation, the personnel and the city is are under occupation, but regardless, the nuclear power plant is operating and delivering energy to the grid. The same pertains to other companies that are operating, providing jobs and helping the war efforts. We are seeing some disruption of the supply chain as we are the easternmost region of Ukraine, and now that the ports are blocked, we used to access a lot of trade links through Berdyansk and the southern Ukrainian ports. This was a major outlet for us to receive the raw materials and to supply our produce, but we are seeking to build new supply channels in order to keep the municipal economy running, as it's critically important to maintain this economic front, because if we don't maintain that, it would be difficult for us to rebuild, feed, and keep the uh, local economy running. We are looking at different alternatives to support the small and medium businesses. We're doing all we can under the conditions we find ourselves in. Thank you very much for information. We wish you victories. We talked to Oleksandr Starukh, the head of Zaporizhzhia military administration. The next briefing is coming up at 1. We'll talk to Denis Marchuk, who is the deputy chairman of the Ukrainian Agrarian Council. Will talk about the agricultural center, the blockage of seaports, and the prospects for